We tend to operate on a core assumption about trust. We think it's like a coastline, something that erodes slowly, bit by bit, with every small disappointment, a gradual, predictable decay. But what if the data shows that this model is just completely wrong? Right, the conventional wisdom is that relationships die by 1,000 cuts. Commitment phrase, communication breaks down, and eventually the whole thing just dissolves. A slow fade to black. That's the story we all tell ourselves. But the operational reality, it's far more brutal. In high-trust systems, whether personal or professional, trust doesn't really erode. It fractures. It seems to operate in a perfectly stable, high-functioning state right up until the exact moment it catastrophically fails. The real question is, why? And that brings us to our first key area of focus, the sudden death of trust. This phenomenon isn't some bug in the system, it's a core feature of its underlying mechanics. So what you're looking at here is a visualization of the step function collapse. Studies that track relationship dissolution show something fascinating. The volume of interaction doesn't gradually decline. It stays stable, often at peak intensity, and then it just drops to zero, abruptly. It seems a single piece of new information, a single disclosure, acts like a binary switch, terminating the entire system instantly. Now, the very fact that one piece of information can be fatal suggests something really important. It implies that information itself isn't just a moral good or bad, it's a strategic resource. And this leads to the concept of the survival premium. At the heart of all this is a core concept from game theory: information asymmetry. You see, social interactions are almost never played with open cards. One party, almost always, knows more than the other. And this imbalance of knowledge is what fundamentally dictates the power dynamics and, ultimately, the stability of the whole system. This isn't a new idea. This ecological metaphor from Chanakya, writing way back in 300 BCE, shows just how ancient this principle is. A straight tree is predictable. It's uniform, easy to process, so it's the first one to get cut down and used. The crooked tree, though, its complexity, its unpredictability, helps it survive. In human terms, radical transparency makes you predictable, and being predictable makes you incredibly vulnerable. So this really creates two types of players in any social system. First, you have the naive agent. They practice total transparency. They lay their whole hand on the table, all their weaknesses, their dependencies, their fears, and in doing so, they basically give away all their leverage. But then you have the strategic operator. This person practices information control. They understand that managing what is known and what isn't creates a survival premium, that tactical advantage you need to navigate a complex, often competitive world. But you have to ask, where does this powerful impulse for total transparency even come from? Well, there's a provocative claim in the source material. The honest man is a child. And that isn't supposed to be a metaphor. It's actually a statement about developmental psychology. Think about it. A young child's honesty isn't really a moral choice. It's a cognitive default. Before developing a mature theory of mind, a child literally can't comprehend that the information inside their head isn't automatically inside everyone else's head. They tell the truth because they lack the cognitive hardware to construct a plausible, separate reality. In a very real sense, learning to lie is a developmental milestone. And that's because deception is metabolically expensive. It's hard work for your brain. It requires a sequence of really high-level executive functions. First, you have to actively suppress the automatic impulse to just say the truth. Second, you have to dig into your working memory to construct a viable alternative. And third, and this is the hardest part, you have to log that lie and maintain its consistency over time. It is a very sophisticated cognitive skill, not just a simple moral failure. Okay, so let's apply the red team test to this whole thesis. The challenge is simple. If deception is just a tool for selfish survival, then any lie, no matter what it's about, should damage a relationship. If it were a simple bug, we'd see trust degrade uniformly every single time. But that's not what the data shows. In experiments using what's called the trust game, a very strange paradox emerges. Participants often report higher levels of trust in a partner who tells them an altruistic lie. That is, a lie that actually benefits the participant, even at a cost to the person telling it. See, trust seems to have two primary variables: integrity, which is honesty, and benevolence, which is kindness. And when those two things come into conflict, the signal of benevolence can actually outweigh the violation of integrity. And all of this brings us to the central metaphor of this entire analysis, the idea of a stable, long-term relationship as an act of brutalist architecture, a structure that's defined by its raw, exposed, and absolutely necessary foundations. It's a system built on a necessary and very costly information asymmetry. So let's picture this structure. The top floor is the exoteric level. This is the user interface of the relationship. It's the sun-drenched living room. It's a curated reality built from ornamental knowledge and shared myths. We're going to be okay. We're secure. This is the pleasant, stable world that the protected partner, let's call them the user, gets to live in. But beneath those floorboards lies the esoteric level, a subterranean concrete bunker. And this is where the architect manages the real structural knowledge, the financial terrors, the existential doubts, the harsh statistical realities of the world. The stability of that beautiful living room above is completely, 100% dependent on the structural integrity of this hidden bunker. And maintaining this structure, well, it creates an asymmetry of suffering. The architect bears a massive cognitive and metabolic load. Keeping secrets, managing threats, and maintaining this simulation is exhausting work. It is a form of protection, yes, but it is also a profound, heavy burden. Now, this meticulously engineered system is stable, but it's also incredibly fragile. Its failure state isn't a slow decay, it's a catastrophic system fracture. Failure happens during what's called a leakage event. And let's be very clear, this is not a confession. It's an uncontrolled breach. A foreclosure notice in the mail, a stray text message that gets seen, a diagnosis that comes from a third party. The raw structural truth of the bunker suddenly, violently floods the curated living room. The damage here isn't just emotional, it's existential. It causes what you could call epistemic trauma. The user suddenly realizes they haven't just been lied to about a single fact, their entire model of reality has been a fabrication. The architect is instantly recast from a protector into a manipulator. Their entire shared past is rewritten as a simulation. So, if we put all of this together, we can see a kind of synthesized model of social maturity. Stage 1 is the child, motivated by pure impulse, who literally cannot lie. Stage 2 is the fox, who develops the cognitive skill to lie but does so for self-interest. But stage 3 is the integrated adult. This person has the skill of the fox, but they deploy it with the motivation of care, curating the truth not for selfish gain, but for the stability of the system and the protection of the people inside it. And this leaves us with a predictive indicator. When you see a culture begin to celebrate radical honesty as its highest possible virtue, treating the careful curation of reality as some kind of moral failure, you should watch for a corresponding rise in social atomization, the breakdown of long-term bonds, both romantic and communal. That is the signal that the load-bearing walls of social cohesion are being dismantled in favor of an ideology that the system itself simply cannot sustain.